Welcome to Push with Love. Today we have Jasmine Bootle. Jasmine, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So, hi, my name is Jasmine Bootle. He actually said it right, which is not normal. I have a podcast and a television show that surrounds addiction, and there's a lot of reasons why I do it. It is to bring awareness to addiction and people who may not have ever been any experience with it. It's also for families of people who are addicted to kind of let us see that they have a voice too, because they suffer a lot in silence, and the grief that they go through is astronomical. And also, I like to kind of show people that there is so many other ways to find sobriety than what we're generally told. So that's that's like it in a nutshell, I suppose. And even like one of my first guests was actually Micah. And he gave me some really good advice when we spoke. And that's the kind of thing I mean, is that we can learn from each other. And I took his advice and I used it, and but it helped me, right? And so through talking to people, either they be clinically trained or just through their story of doing something differently or just diving deeper, I find that it gives me strength, and hearing their stories and struggles also gives me strength, which I think so many of us struggle. So many of us go into the hole, and to stay out of the hole, the stories and the other ways that kind of give us some freedom to maybe change what we're doing is why I do it. Sorry, word soup.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate that. And I'm glad that I could help at least give you some type of reflection. I feel like my struggle with addiction has really, sorry about that, has been really kind of like a cycle. So it would be like I needed to find something that would work for me. And I'm against taking drugs, so I just kind of forced myself to find a way. And talking with people and nature and art, that pretty much helped me with mine, kind of getting under control. So when you were approaching the idea of recovery, what was a moment in your life that you kind of realized you needed to address it? You needed to fix what was going on.
So there is a movie about Bill Wilson and his wife Lois Wilson. I think it's called When Love Isn't Enough. And while watching that movie, it put the seed in my head that I had a problem. Like, when you go, if you're an addict, you don't always realize that it has become a problem. But from watching that movie, I realized that I had a problem. And there's a quote in that movie that I still use to this day, because it was something that was the reason that made me realize that I had a problem with alcohol. And I didn't get help right away, I will admit, but that's where I realized I had a problem. I just wasn't ready to face it.
Mm. That's understandable. I think we all kind of approach it at that with the same idea that we're kind of like resisting the idea that it's really a problem until it kind of hits us, and then we're like, okay, we really do need to
You
fix
don't want
it.
that label. So I was very young. I was 22. I didn't want that label of an alcoholic for the rest of my life. I also didn't want to have a problem with alcohol. It's something that I didn't want to be like that. So I was, like you said, I was running from the idea that I really did have a problem, even though I deep down knew once I heard that.
Yeah, kind of sparked it. So
Mm-hmm.
when you did decide to start kind of addressing it, what was the first steps that you did in order to kind of start your journey into recovery?
So I went to a 12-step program. It wasn't the most successful thing for me because at the time I still had that resistance. And even in the steps, on my fourth steps, I still lied on them, so my sponsor didn't know the truth about certain things. And that in itself is proving that I'm not working the program or taking it seriously, meaning I'm not taking my sobriety seriously. Even if, say, it doesn't work for me, I could have looked for other options, because I knew people in AA that used it as a tool, but it wasn't their only thing that they did, right? And I live near a native reserve where they do a lot of healing, like holistically, right? And my biggest mentor, who has passed, was native and had done so many of those things, and that was what was the most beneficial to him. And instead of listening and taking in what he was saying, I was still rejecting it. What got me actually sober was when my father passed away, because my father hated my drinking, hated it. So I didn't want him to not be proud of me, even though you know what I mean? So I kind of, what they would say, white knuckled it and just didn't drink alcohol.
So you just cold turkeyed it.
Yeah, but that led to there was a lot of family drama after he passed, and then because I had quit the alcohol and I did it cold turkey and didn't ask for help or have anybody to lean on, I ended up becoming addicted to opiates. And where I truly found sobriety was at a methadone clinic, which a lot of people don't like to go to because they don't want the label of going to a methadone clinic. And I've been going there for 5 years now. That's how I hold myself accountable. I wouldn't say that is the option for everybody. I have an amazing doctor, and that's why I'm able to be the way I am. But a lot of the other doctors there are not like her. So everybody has their own experience with what helps them. I got lucky that I have a doctor that's also like a therapist, but like a no nonsense kind of therapist. Like, she'll tell you how it is, especially if it's petty and you're telling her a story in your life. She'll just look at you like, oh, come on, get off it. You know what I mean? But I need that in my life. So that's why I found sobriety within seeing this doctor.
Nice.
So those were the steps, I suppose.
Very good. I'm glad that you were able to find somebody that really meshed with you and kept you accountable. I feel like that's really the main part of the equation when it comes to recovery, is finding at least someone, at least one person that is going to kind of be that stable reflection for you.
Well, I have to pee in a cup every 2 weeks, so that's accountability right there.
Right? That'll keep you accountable.
Uh-huh.
So that was actually my next question, was if you had somebody, but you obviously have somebody, so that is good. And I'm almost certain that your dad is proud of you. Just being a father of a daughter, I'm sure he is.
Well, we were really extremely close, so that was the thing, and plus all the family stuff that ended up happening. It wasn't necessarily fair because I'm an only child and I took care of my dad and I lived with my dad for a good 10 years and stuff. So that's why there was all that drama, and that's why I needed another substance to relieve the stress of it all, which obviously led to a bad path and had to get actually sober in a different way. But what I will say is that there are, I could almost say 100 clinically proven ways to find sobriety, whether it be drugs or alcohol, that aren't talked about. So you, if you're on the fence or you don't like whatever program you're in, can find freedom in looking for other ways. You just have to ask or even Google. There's something called naltrexone, which you don't even have to stop drinking. It rewires your brain, and you eventually just stop drinking on your own. And they don't tell you about that. And that's what I mean, is if you just look around, you will find a better way to sobriety. And like with what Micah taught me, was a lot about being present, and that helped me a lot.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I believe it. I believe that when you are present and when you are putting in the effort and the will to fix yourself or address what is going on, instead of ignoring it or denying it, you will find a solution. It takes that effort. You just have to be committed and be present, like you said. So when you're in this, I guess you could say you're in the recovery or you have recovered, and you're just maintaining. Is there emotions or events that challenge your sobriety or possibly going to back into relapse?
Well, right now I'm in a negative situation in my life. I won't talk for hours, but it is stressful. But the thing is, if you relapse, it's just going to make the situation even worse. And you're going to find yourself far worse than you started off with. So, the thing that keeps me from ever wanting to pick up something besides this is my energy drink. I drink every day. Sorry, that's my addiction now. But basically, I don't want to make it worse. And I'll say I've been to hell and I don't want to go back. And I think a lot of people in recovery would agree that it's that fear of having to go back and do that all over again to get to that point of where we were, even if life's hard, right? Because it's such a journey, right? And the withdrawal symptoms and the beginning when you're looking for the medication and when you're then having to start the beginning of sobriety, you have to go there every single day to the methadone clinic. So it's a lot of effort and you don't want to screw that up. And with drinking, it affects your brain with your anxiety, and then you're already anxious, then that just compiles it. So basically it's not wanting to have to go back to square one or not wanting to destroy my life. I don't know what the outcome would be, right? If I decided to drink a bottle of whiskey, who knows what would happen? So I just don't want to go there, you know?
Very good. So it's mostly just avoidance, even if it's having a hard time or you're having
Yeah,
struggles.
it's like mentally thinking about how much worse it like can be if you went back to it. Like right now, it's like it's really bad, but you can figure it out. Throw drugs and alcohol into the mix, and you could be living in a motel, haven't seen your family in a week because you relapsed, and the stress then you're afraid and you're shameful, and it just, yeah, you don't want to go back. That's why.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. So if you could give some advice to families and friends that are in proximity of somebody that's in recovery, what would you tell them so that they could show up and give them space?
I would actually suggest that they talk to somebody that's call an interventionist, not have an intervention, but call an interventionist because they're trained in how to help families through these scenarios. Sorry, they're not they're not just there for the intervention. They're trained in how to help families deal with the like other family member that's an addict. So I would honestly suggest calling them because they do more than just the intervention, and they themselves are usually somebody who has lost somebody or somebody who has been an addict themselves. They understand the disease and they have actual school training on how to help families. So that would be my advice: is talk to an interventionist. Don't have an intervention, talk to an interventionist.
Yeah, talk to a professional. I mean, having somebody that has gone through it and knows all of the steps intimately, I think that would definitely be invaluable in the process of giving them space. That way they don't feel like it's an attack. And then I would like to just kind of dive into that idea of how, when we drop one addiction, it's easy to kind of slip into another addiction to kind of substitute it. So what do you think would be the best way to avoid something like that? To slip into another addiction that's just as bad, or if not worse?
We need to learn coping mechanisms. That is a problem we're not taught. And when you go to 12-step meetings, they don't have it's there to initially get sober, but they don't dive into the root cause. So basically, looking at yourself and thinking, okay, when you're envious of somebody, for instance, right? Writing it down and then looking, like, it's almost like doing like a brainstorm, looking at why was I envious, and you'll initially get to the root cause being something from your childhood, and that's when you're able to resolve it, and that's just something that you're envious of. But when it comes to drugs and alcohol, it's the same kind of thing. You brainstorm when you're triggered by something, and you connect the dots as to why you were triggered, and that will stop you from relapsing or picking something else up, because you'll know why you're picking it up in the first place, and how, like, the reasoning in your actual mind, what caused it, and you'll be able to understand and notice it faster, and maybe even have healed it by figuring it out and going a step further and finding healing methods to heal those issues from childhood that lead to us picking up anything.
Very well put. I agree. I feel like if you can address the emotion that's popping up and then just reflect on it, like you said, write it down. Usually writing down anything, your thoughts or your emotions, that will help at least create it so it's real. It's in the real world now because it's on paper. And it gives you an opportunity to read it as well, so it reinforces it. So I feel like that is perfect advice for anybody that might be struggling with addiction and might slip into another addiction. It's just
I've done it, so that's how I know.
you have firsthand knowledge, so yes, it's absolutely true. It works. Writing down your emotions and thoughts will organize them, and it does give you that chance to look at what happened in your childhood or what emotion kind of stuck with you.
Well, I started doing it when my dad went into a septic shock and they put him in a medically induced coma. I just did the hospital for so many hours. What else was I going to do? And I was very upset. And that's when I started doing that. And that's why, I kind of white knuckled it, but I did do a lot of internal work in the middle of the night when my dad was sick, which was why I was able to not drink. But I wasn't, like, I didn't have the full knowledge of how to do it, and heal myself. So that's where the other substance came in.
Very good. So it was almost a need at that point. You were just in that point where you had to do something and that you were stuck.
Yeah, I just felt like everybody was coming at me from every angle and I just couldn't handle it. And I'm an only child. I didn't have anybody in my corner because I had my mom who wanted what she wanted and my aunt who wanted what she wanted, but nobody cared about me. So it was just learning how to teach myself how to care about myself and love myself and not need these people to lean on, right?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's really tough when you feel like you're alone and nobody's got your back. It's one of those things that it feels insurmountable and you don't know what to do. So it's very easy to turn to some type of substance to kind of numb the pain, take you out of reality. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And before we go, if you have any advice or any type of closing remarks you'd like to share with people, let's go ahead.
What I would say is there is freedom in sobriety, and there is many, many, many ways that you can find sobriety if you truly want it. I'm not forcing anybody to go get sober. If you don't want to, that's your choice, right? But if you're feeling like the traditional ways do not fit who you are, or you, like for me, like how I didn't follow the steps correctly because it wasn't a fit for me, right? So you just look around and watch YouTube videos about sobriety and about people's stories, and you'll learn so much about how you're not alone and how there is other ways. There's always a way that will suit you, and you don't need to feel like you're forced into rehab, or you're forced into going to methadone clinic. I like it, but some people don't, right? And you're not forced into the 90 meetings in 90 days. You can go to a ranch and live there and have like counseling. There's so many options. There's naltrexone. There's plant medicine. I could just sit here and name that for hours, but I'm not going to do that to Micah. But my message is basically that where there's a will, there's a way, and you can feel comfortable in your recovery and feel free in your recovery. You just have to look. And I find other people's stories, especially on YouTube, will help you not feel alone and guide you into a path that you might be better suited for.
Beautifully put. Thank you for that. And thank you for your time again and all of your wisdom and your experience.
Well, thank you for your advice. It helped me.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. This has been Push with Love. Remember to like and subscribe. Until next time.